All right, folks. Hello and welcome to week 12 of the class. We are getting down to the end of things. So let's just jump into this today. Today we're going to be talking about Rogerian argument, which is a way that you can approach your proposal essay. It's a kind of different way of approaching arguments, so we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the final exam questions. We're going to do an overview of your questions that you have for the final exam, just so you know what to expect. Okay? So, let's talk about proposal argument strategy. Now, one thing you have to remember is that many times a proposal argument uses similar strategies to a classical argument, because you're attempting to appeal to your audience on a logical level. You're trying to get them to understand the subject the way you understand it. As we discussed last week, oftentimes a practical proposal will work with concrete arguments, appealing to the sense of logic, whereas a policy proposal is sometimes going to work with emotional arguments, which appeals to pathos more than logos. Okay? A lot of times we're dealing with stuff where you are trying to appeal people on an emotional level, trying to get them to feel what you feel and make you right based on what they feel about you. Okay? There are some instances where a proposal argument, however, needs to straddle the line between debating sides in order to keep both sides happy and feeling respected. This is where Rogerian argument comes into play. So let's take a look at Rogerian argument and kind of see what we're talking about here and the difference between it and normal types of argument. Alright, so Rogerian argument is simply an argument which reaches more toward finding common ground between sides than it does for one side being more right than the other. Okay? We talked, way back when we were dealing with classical argument, we talked about the purpose of classical argument being learning. We talked about being expressing information, getting it out there, making it understood. Okay, Rogerian argument is kind of similar to that, but its focus is primarily in terms of understanding, okay? Making sure that both sides understand each other, okay? Now, this style of argument was developed by a psychologist named Carl Rogers in the 1970s, okay? Now, to understand where he's coming from, you have to kind of understand what the general philosophy of psychology was at the time, okay? Now, when you think of psychology, what most people think of is the general thing with the field that was founded by Sigmund Freud, where you lie down on a couch and tell the therapist how much you want to have sex with your mother. Okay? They taught a lot of stuff like dream analysis, hypnotherapy, that sort of thing, stems from Freud and Carl Jung and all those guys. Okay? Well, that's certainly legitimate, but in the 70s, we were kind of getting away from that. At the time, psychology was trending toward concentrating on validation of feelings rather than fixing what's wrong with a person's way of thinking. Okay, so it wasn't so much about a prescriptive approach where this is your problem, this is how we fix it. It was more along the lines of, let's try to understand why you feel that way and get to the root cause. Okay? Now, when we get into Rogerian argument, it kind of relates into a psychological theory called transactional analysis, or commonly TA. It focused on how interactions make individuals feel and acknowledging and validating those feelings. Okay? If you may have heard in elementary school the terms warm fuzzies and cold pricklies to describe how people react to interactions. Okay, that comes from transactional analysis. That actually was the basis of it, and actually how transactional analysis was applied to child psychology. Okay, there were actually children's books about TA that were brought out that told fantasy stories about towns that would exchange warm fuzzies with each other, and they basically literally had fuzzy little, kind of looked like tribbles from Star Trek, but they were multicolored, and they wound up making people feel good, especially if you had a lot of them. So warm fuzzies, cold pricklies come from transactional analysis, and also Rogerian argument comes from it. Okay, Rogerian argument is focusing on how both sides are feeling about the argument more than what the dispute is. Okay? Jagielski acknowledges this origin by mentioning the purpose of Rogerian argument as a means to negotiate differences and achieve social cooperation. Okay? That's a really complex way of saying, let's all agree on this and let's not fight. Let's just find a solution that's going to work. And as it happens, I have a solution right here that will work. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's move to the next slide. All right, so the basics of Rogerian argument. The primary thing to remember is that its goal is finding common ground between typically vastly separate sides. The main way it achieves this is by acknowledging the opposing viewpoint non-judgmentally, as opposed to attempting to invalidate the opposition as classical arguments tend to want to do. Okay, so you're not completely dismissing the opposition out of hand. You're acknowledging what they have to say and saying, okay, you have a good point. Your solution might actually work. However, we're in a circumstance where your position is not exactly right for this time, and that's nothing against you. We understand how you feel. We understand what you're thinking. It's just, this is how we feel right now. Okay? So, Rogerian argument is organized into 6 primary sections. Starting with your introduction. It presents the problem to be resolved and offers hope for a positive outcome. Okay? It is not about expressing your side of it yet. It's actually just strictly about this is a problem. It's one that we want to have. It's one that both sides want to have fixed. Let's work together to find that solution. Second part of this is actually the summary of the opposing viewpoint. Okay? You have to state it as accurately and neutrally as possible. This is definitely the no judgment zone here. Okay? You cannot editorialize about your opponent's viewpoint when you're trying to summarize it. You have to simply state the facts of what their viewpoint is. Okay? The third part is a statement of understanding, where you acknowledge the validity of the opposing viewpoint and find common ground between your side and the opponent. Remember that you do not necessarily have to condone the opposition in order to validate it. Okay? What does that mean? Well, basically you can say, I understand that you feel this way. I understand that you have strong, sincere feelings that this is how it should be. Okay? You're telling them, I understand what you're trying to say. Okay? I understand your viewpoint. I understand why you want to do this. Okay? Part 4 is the statement of position. Now, this is when you bring your argument in. Okay? So now you're going to make your side known. Okay? So, at this point, this is when you're going to bring in your side of the argument, what you want to propose. Okay? Then you have statement of context. The main argument made in the Rogerian argument tends to be that the opposition has a valid argument, but it is not applicable to the current context. Okay? By stating the context, you're establishing why your position is more appropriate for the circumstances. So, in other words, my opposition wants to do this. And yes, that's actually a legitimate solution. I think it would actually work. However, it would work in a period where this condition does not exist, and this condition does not exist, and this condition does not exist. Unfortunately, all 3 of those conditions currently exist, which means that while my opponent is good intentioned, their solution is not going to work. I, on the other hand, have a solution that will make both sides satisfied and will work under the current circumstances. That's the key to Rogerian argument. It is not about opposite side is wrong and they're a bunch of morons. It is about the opposite side has a point, but I have a better point. Okay? Then following that is a statement of benefits. Appeal to the self-interest of the opposition. State what's in it for them if your position is adopted and how they will also benefit from your side of the argument. Okay? So at this point, you want to try to make it clear that your solution is going to help everybody, not just you. Okay? And that is another big key here. Okay? We want to find common ground. We want to help everybody. We do not want to just limit it to my side comes out ahead. Okay? Because that's not going to work for anybody. So I do have an example I want to show you of Rogerian argument to help you understand this form of argument. Okay, this is a student essay about the debate over homeschooling versus traditional schooling. Okay, I'm going to actually read through this essay. You're actually going to see that there's some editing done in this essay. There's going to be some stuff that's highlighted with some instructor notes. Okay, I'm not going to look at those instructor notes. I'm just going to read through it here. This link is in the slideshow, so if you want to go ahead and look at those notes yourself, you can. Okay? I want you to take a moment to read the essay and determine a few vital pieces of the puzzle in regards to this argument. Okay? So first, what side of the debate is St. Martin on, and what is his statement of his side of the issue? Okay? How specifically does he state his side? Second, how effective is St. Martin's validation of the opposing viewpoint? Okay? Has he taken full account of the valid arguments his opposition has in regards to the subject? Okay? So, how do you feel he's done, how good of a job do you think he's done in expressing his viewpoint and validating the opposition and taking account of valid arguments? Okay? Third, what kind of common ground is St. Martin proposing, and what actions, if any, does he put forth to achieve this common ground? So what does he do to try to say, hey, this is the common ground we want to achieve, let's do it this way? Okay? So let's take a look at this essay. This is Safety and Structure First, the debate about homeschooling by Charles St. Martin. Alright, so here is the essay. It is at Excelsior College's website. You can see the address up there. I also have the link in the slideshow. Okay? So, the debate about homeschooling by Charles St. Martin. Okay? Over 20,000 Oregonian students attend school at home, and according to Martin Chang, Gould, and Muse, the national number of homeschoolers was close to 1.5 million children in 2008. The estimated numbers account for about 2.9% of the total school-age population in the United States, a significant statistical proportion. She noted that while homeschooling has become a fashionable choice for young and urban professionals who want the best education for their children, including many in the Pacific Northwest, the subject is still fraught with controversies about cognitive and social development, governmental involvement, standards, and safety. Opponents of homeschooling believe too much is often left up to parents, who can teach their kids anything they desire and limit contact with other perspectives and environments. Homeschooling is often associated with extremism, and potentially abusive situations are harder to identify when the victims are isolated. Additionally, opponents fear that some parents choose homeschooling reactively out of fear or displeasure, rather than making a thoughtful choice based on their child's needs. Proponents of homeschooling believe homeschooled children are healthy and advanced learners because they receive one-on-one attention and often have some degree of control over their own learning. They believe parents can make the best choices for their children. Research and anecdotal evidence demonstrate that these positive claims are true in safe situations, but are lost in extreme cases. Ensuring safety and educational support for all homeschooling students should be a top priority as the state works to ensure parents who want to still have an opportunity to homeschool their children. Plenty of information exists to validate the concerns of the opposition of homeschooling. In many cases, parents do have total control over the homeschooling environment. Oregon, for example, monitors homeschoolers by requiring children to take standardized tests in grades 3, 5, 8, and 10. This requirement is the only major assessment. According to Joyce, many states require even less from families who choose to homeschool. 26 states do not require any testing, and 11 states do not ask for any kind of notification from homeschooling parents. In these locations, parental discretion becomes the law in place of any formal guidelines. Perhaps in most cases, such parental freedom benefits the children, but in others, as opponents note, the children lose out. In her article, The Homeschool Apostates, Joyce tells the stories of several former homeschoolers whose educational experiences were dangerous and harmful because of their parents' fundamentalist stance. One woman explained, "I was basically raised by someone with a mental disorder and told you have to obey her or God's going to send you to hell." Her anxiety disorder meant that she had to control every little thing, and homeschooling and her religious beliefs gave her justification for it. In this same example, the parents also failed to take an active interest in teaching their children, choosing instead to simply hand out school books and require their preteens to self-teach. Joyce argued that this type of situation is not anomalous and cited websites such as Homeschoolers Anonymous and No Longer Quivering, where hundreds of others have shared similar accounts of their homeschooling experiences. These students are in situations that are detrimental to their emotional, intellectual, social, and sometimes physical health, but little is done to protect them. Questionable outcomes are not just limited to abusive situations. Sometimes homeschoolers struggle to achieve on the same level as their peers despite their parents' best intentions. According to Martin Chang, Gould, and Muse, children whose parents chose unstructured homeschooling do not achieve academically on the same level as their peers, falling behind students who participate in structured homeschooling and traditional schooling. In the unstructured form of homeschooling, the learning process is entirely determined by the child, whereas in structured forms, the parents view themselves as important contributors to their children's education. Structured homeschooling may still focus on a child's individual interests, but the parents create lesson plans or otherwise guide the child's learning. In an interview for Concordia University, Martin Chang acknowledged that the results of the study might have been different if student achievement had been measured using a different tool. The results here were garnered from a standardized test with no connection to either the public school curriculum or homeschool groups, or if the children had been older than 10 years old at the time of the test. Despite these qualifiers, Martin Chang felt the study's initial findings were in keeping with other research that suggests parental engagement with the child's learning is a good indicator of academic success. In some forms of homeschooling, it appears that there is a lack of this essential involvement. On the other hand, homeschooled students whose parents instituted some structure scored higher on the independently implemented tests than both the traditional students and the unstructured learners. This result supports earlier, although potentially flawed, research indicating the high achievements of homeschoolers. Additionally, such findings underscore the claims of those who believe that homeschooling can have big benefits for children. Many believe that the big reason for homeschool success is parental investment. Martin Chang, Gould, and Muse hypothesized this advantage may be explained by several factors, including smaller class sizes, more individualized instruction, or more academic time spent on core subjects such as reading and writing. The flexibility of the homeschool environment allows parents to tailor the material and the schedule to the needs of their child, who ideally they know well and love tremendously. Public school teachers cannot currently devote the same time to each child because they have full classrooms and additional demands on their attention from administrators and political figures. Clearly, both opponents and proponents of homeschooling have well-supported arguments for their positions. Homeschooling is an option that often leads to high achievement and personal satisfaction for students. However, some situations are unhealthy and potentially harmful to a child's development. The solution to the homeschool controversy is a balanced approach that upholds the benefits of homeschooling while accounting for dangers. While, as Hovde noted, abuses can occur in any educational setting, Joyce thoroughly demonstrated that abused homeschoolers have a harder time finding access to help, emphasizing that in the past, homeschooling families had to look for help through an informal grapevine of survivors. Now those survivors are pushing for legal reforms that assess state policies for protecting homeschoolers. In order for homeschooling to remain a safe and rewarding option for parents and students, these extreme cases need to be taken seriously. Resources need to be readily available, and anyone found to have abused a child should be held accountable. Those who support homeschooling should also support reforms that make homeschooling safer for everyone. In addition, more research needs to be done on unstructured homeschooling, perhaps using a more holistic measuring tool, since standardized tests are known to be problematic. Parents who are deciding how to educate their children should have access to accurate information about child development and learning. If total freedom is not the best option for children, parents should be encouraged to seek alternative methods of homeschooling. The bottom line is that parents have a great deal of influence on their children's learning, whether that learning is done in a traditional school or at home. Hovde said better scores should be expected when parents are so involved in a child's education. I'd argue that parent involvement is the primary factor for student success in any educational venue. In her interview with Concordia University, Martin Chang went even further, suggesting that public school teachers and parents can create the same benefits as homeschooling in traditional classrooms by investing time in individual students and creating choice in the classroom. True changes to public school classrooms will likely require other educational reforms, but the point is that the learning environment is more important than the actual venue. Still, as public schools work and sometimes struggle to meet the needs of individual children, ensuring quality homeschooling experiences should be a priority in the state of Oregon and elsewhere. Alright, so, take a moment here, answer those 3 questions, and then resume the lecture and come back and see me. Alright, so let's talk about how you can apply a Rogerian argument to a proposal. A major part of a proposal argument is attempting to reach common ground with multiple different sides of an issue. A great reason to employ elements of a Rogerian argument to a proposal. Okay? Now, what are we doing here to try to appeal to common ground? Here's what you can do. You're appealing to your opposing side by validating their argument and their belief in their argument. That is, say you're buttering them up. Okay? Make them think that make them feel important. Not only to you, but to the argument in general. Okay? To the dispute in general. Place the full argument in context to not invalidate the opposition so much as to make your own side more valid in the circumstances. Okay? Again, this is about looking at your opponent's viewpoint and saying it's a valid viewpoint. However, these conditions that are currently existing make that viewpoint invalid, whereas my viewpoint accounts for these current issues and is therefore valid. Okay? Emphasize that there are common goals and beliefs that are in play. Make it crystal clear that those common goals are why your proposal is being put forth in your argument. Okay? Again, a big part of Rogerian argument is we are finding common ground. We have shared goals. Okay? Remember that this form of argument is designed to help foster communication, especially in sides of a dispute where there is a large difference of opinion. In the Yagelski textbook, there is an example of this in a classroom debate over same-sex marriage and how someone applied a Rogerian argument to this particular debate. Okay, now with all that being said, there's one caveat I want to give you on Rogerian argument. It is not a genre that is easy to do. And there are some people, myself included, who absolutely cannot write one to save their life. Okay? I cannot write a Rogerian argument. I need to take a side, and I need to take a side basically with a vengeance. Okay? I need to be able to invalidate somebody's logic. I need to be able to show that the other side is being unreasonable. Okay? I would like to find common ground. I'm sure a lot of people would. I just have trouble articulating how I want to reach that common ground. So, just to let you know, again, Rogerian argument, it's great. It's certainly a valid form of argument to write. It's just not easy. If you spent your entire life doing nothing but classical arguments, switching over to Rogerian argument is going to be one of the hardest things you ever do. Okay? But, with that being said, I don't want to discourage anybody from trying it if they want to. Okay? And this proposal essay is probably the best atmosphere for a Rogerian argument. Alright. So, the final exam packet includes 4 potential questions that you should prepare for. Okay? Of these questions, 2 of them are going to be appearing on the final exam. Okay? You will have a slideshow that will be available to you on the final exam when you take the final exam. You open it up, it's going to have the password for the exam itself, and it will have the 2 questions chosen for your section. Okay? I'm providing you the questions in advance to help you study and practice. So I would strongly encourage use your journals or do whatever you need to do to practice writing these exam responses in a limited amount of time. Okay? Time yourself for the time limit of the exam. Remember that when you are writing the essay for the exam, you will need to do the full writing process during the exam period. With very few exceptions in my sections, the exam time limit you have is 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's how long you have to draft, revise, and proofread your response. Okay? Now, this week I am also posting the proctor instructions. Now, I did tell you 2 weeks ago when I first told you about the exam that you were going to need to find a proctor. Okay? Someone within your household, a trusted adult who can keep an eye on you while you take the exam to ensure that you follow the instructions and do not cheat. Okay? So, when you find that those proctor instructions, I want you to print the sheet and give it to your exam proctor. So they will act as a timekeeper and verify you take the exam without outside assistance other than the packet. Okay? This is the important thing. They're going to check the packet to make sure that you're following the instructions I give for use of that packet. that you haven't added any pages. If you've added notes, it's been within the packet itself, and that you've used everything that you can to prepare for this. Okay? So, with that in mind, we're going to take a look at the 4 questions and some materials that might help you answer those questions. Starting with question number 1. Among the reasonings that have been presented for considering children's programming to be controversial, issues of inclusion of marginalized populations tends to arise commonly throughout time, whether it be Southern objections to Sesame Street's diverse neighborhood or modern issues that arise around LGBTQIA+ characters. Which argument can be made for either side of the controversy? That is, what arguments are there for the inclusion of these characters and what arguments are there for their exclusion? What support does either side have for their argument and how sufficient is it? Okay? So, you look at this question and thinking, okay, what sources can I use to reference to find a way to answer this? Okay? And it's not entirely about presenting concrete answers that are found in the sources, but as much as using the sources to inform your argument. Okay? What I would recommend for this question is read through the Sesame Street article from the New Yorker. That is the long oral history of Sesame Street. Okay. Also, I would recommend the materials from Impact Nottingham for perspectives on reasons presented for the disputes. Okay. Remember, Impact Nottingham has a 5-part article about LGBTQIA+ representation, and it's divided by platform. Okay. In addition to this, articles from Extra and The Guardian that are in the packet itself. Okay. I recommend those as well. One other helpful tip, a gateway to protest, at least for LGBTQIA+ issues, can be found by cross-referencing any of the shows mentioned in that section of the packet with the group 1 Million Moms. Okay? To just give you an illustration here, I'm going to show you what comes up when you search 1 Million Moms. Alright, so when you search 1 Million Moms in Google News, you get a lot of articles that pop up. I'm just going to look at 2 of them in particular. Okay? One of them is from Vice, right here. Everything 1 Million Moms wanted to call the manager about in 2020. So this is basically a timeline of every dispute and every campaign that 1 Million Moms launched in the past year. Okay, from January to December 2020. Okay. Some of it is just plain ridiculous. At least one of them was the Super Bowl performance by Shakira and Jennifer Lopez. They wore clothes that were too sexy. Related to our topic, one of the things that they complained about was an appearance by the actor Billy Porter on Sesame Street because he wore this outfit, which is a red carpet outfit that he has worn numerous times to numerous award shows. If you don't know Billy Porter, he is best known for the show Pose, where he plays a trainer for drag queens. Okay, he's very involved in the drag community. All right. They complained about DuckTales having a character that had 2 dads. Okay, that was in April. In July, was it? No. It was August. In August, they complained about the Owl House because they revealed that the main character of the Owl House, Luz Noceda, the human girl who's learning magic, 14 years old, it happens to be bisexual and has a crush on Amity, who is a female classmate. Okay? Let's see. They've done a lot of stuff, but those are the 2 that primarily apply to our particular topic. Okay. Also applying to our topic is one that just happened this year. I'm going to show you this other article. It is from Comic Sans, which is a news aggregator site that's run by George Takei. So you can imagine that 1 Million Moms is one of his favorite targets. Okay. So 1 Million Moms also tried to cancel Blue's Clues. Yes, Blue's Clues, the long-running show on Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. Because they did a revised alphabet song where P stood for pride. And this was a screenshot from the sequence when they got to P in that song. Because we have the various pride flags here. So we have, this is the bisexual pride flag. The P itself is the queer pride flag. This is transgender. This one, I think, one of these is asexual. I think it's this one. This one, I think, is non-binary. These are all different flags that are used by different aspects of the LGBTQIA plus community. Okay, I'm sure somebody else can come up with a better explanation for these. I just know a few of them. Okay, but because they made P stand for pride, that drew 1 million moms' ire. So they decided, you know what, we're going to boycott Nickelodeon until they cancel Blue's Clues. Fat lot of good that did. Alright, so there's more that you can find on 1 Million Moms. They've done several campaigns in the past. They have done campaigns against Disney particularly. One that was not mentioned in the Vice timeline was a protest at Disney, including a lesbian character in Onward. They have complained about quick depictions of same-sex parents in other shows and other films. Okay, they just generally have a problem. Okay, but look up what they've done in terms of children's television, and that'll give you an idea. Here comes question number 2. Consider the Looper list of offensive episodes. Choose any of the episodes on the list and argue for its reintegration into the show in question. Why is the series harmed by its exclusion? What should be done to address the issues which banned the episode in the first place to allow it to be acceptable for broadcast? Okay? Now, you're going to want to read through that Looper article and watch the accompanying video. There is a video of the 11 shows in question, okay, for clips of the offending episodes. Okay, so you can kind of see what it is that people were complaining about. Okay, this is going to primarily come down to your own personal opinion. So come up with a justification for your argument as best as you can based on the evidence present. Okay? Now, I will say there are going to be some episodes that will be extremely hard to justify. Okay? The ones that immediately come to mind in question, the Outlaw Star episode, Hot Springs Planet Tenray, the Cow and Chicken episode, Buffalo Gals. Okay? Those two are going to be very hard to justify. Also, probably Stokey the Bear that I've also put here. That's also going to be kind of hard to justify. Although, I will say that there is a lot less, shall we say, blind respect for government agencies now. As you may recall, when we talked about this, the main complainant about that episode was the U.S. Park Service. Okay? Because they were doing a parody of Smokey the Bear by creating Stokey the Bear. Okay? So, think about it on your own. Think about whether you feel any of them would be justified for returning to the rotation of the show. Returning it to broadcast. Okay? And then come up with your reasoning and try to articulate your reasons as to why that episode should be restored. So, next question is a role-playing question. Place yourself in the role of the parent of an 8-year-old of either gender. Your child has been watching Steven Universe off and on depending on the broadcast schedule. But the night you decide to watch the show with them is the night the episode of Reunited airs, depicting a lesbian wedding. Argue for or against your child continuing to watch the show. For what reasons are you making the decision for your child? How much does the background of the series or other episodes of it play into your decision? Okay? So, at its heart, this is a role-playing question. Okay? Again, it's going to be mainly informed by your own personal reaction to the material in question. Okay? Now, there is some printed material about this particular relationship because it was hugely influential. Okay, it was very pivotal. This episode actually wound up being award-winning. I believe it won a GLAAD award for its portrayal of the wedding. And the show itself has received GLAAD awards on several occasions for its portrayal of these same-sex relationships, the realism of them. Okay. So part of the reason why the wedding was so significant was because of the realistic portrayal of the relationship between the participants, Ruby and Sapphire, when they were not fused as Garnet. Okay? We're going to talk about that. We're going to show you that in a little bit here. Another element that will help to inform this response is background on the show's creator, Rebecca Sugar, and some of her goals for the series. Okay? I have linked a very thorough interview with her to this slide. I'm not going to play it for you here because it runs about an hour and I don't feel like editing it. Okay? But I can tell you some of the stuff about that centers on this specific wedding. Okay? One is that one I've already told you about where the network said, okay, you can have this lesbian wedding, but the show's going to be canceled because of it. Okay? So make your peace with it. One other thing that was influencing it again was she wanted to express what she was feeling at the time because at the time she was engaged in planning a wedding with her now husband, Ian Jones Quartey. Okay? So those are a couple of other perspective things to think about. Another thing to think about is that these types of relationships were actually the centerpiece of this show. Okay? Especially to have a major character like Garnet basically be the personification of one of these types of relationships. Okay? It was a backbone of the show. It was a backbone of her expressing her identity. I'm not sure if I don't recall if I mentioned this. Rebecca Sugar identifies as non-binary bisexual. Okay? So, let me show you this one clip here. There's going to be several clips put together that show you the evolution of Ruby and Sapphire's relationship when they are not fused as Garnet. So we're going to show you the times that Ruby and Sapphire have been separated and some samples of how their relationship has been portrayed. Okay? So here we go.
Welcome. Come on. Ruby! Did they hurt you? No, I'm okay. Did they hurt you? Who cares? I do.
Steven! Thank you. These were crystal gems, shattered into pieces. They were buried together.
Why are you moving?
They were forced together. They were forced to fuse. This is wrong. I'm sorry.
No, Garnet! You're coming undone! Garnet! Please, what's the matter? This isn't like you! We did it! Garnet?
So this is what Homeworld thinks of fusion. We couldn't have known they would do this. This is where they've been. All the ones we couldn't find. They've been here the whole time. Rose couldn't have known. This was punishment for the rebellion. It's not our fault.
Garnet!
If you're not going to listen, then you can just go.
We must move past this, Ruby.
She lied to us so we would form sardonyx! She tricked us! Don't you feel used? Ruby, Sapphire,
You're choosing to take it personally.
It's fusion, Sapphire! What's more personal to us than fusion?
I know you're still upset.
Oh, so it's just me.
Of course not. Can't you see I'm completely engulfed with rage?
Well, it doesn't feel like it.
The sooner we forgive Pearl, the better it will be for us all.
You're not as above this as you think you are!
Yes, I am. You can't stay angry with her forever.
Wanna bet?
Ruby, the carpet.
I thought you wanted to have a fun time, but everyone's been acting awful too. It just came with us. I don't understand. Is it me? No, Steven, it's all us.
But we made him feel like it was his fault. I keep looking into the future when all of this has already been solved. As if it doesn't matter how you feel in the present. No wonder you think I don't care.
Sapphire? No, this is all my fault. I didn't want to look for a solution. I just want to be mad. You're right. You're always right. I was being stupid.
I don't think you're stupid.
I'm sorry.
You honestly think I'm not upset about what happened? I was just trying to do the right thing.
I know. You know what's nice about being split up?
What?
I get to look at you.
Be serious.
There's my laughy Sappy.
You're embarrassing me in front of Steven.
She had known that Ruby would fail. Sapphire had accepted it. But Ruby could not.
No!
What? What is this?
Wait. This is... Let's go.
Bye!
Is this? The furious crowd closed in around Ruby and Sapphire. They'd never seen a fusion of two different types of gems. Unbelievable! Disgusting! This is unheard of! Blue Diamond's voice cut through the crowd. The rebels have fled. Sapphire, this is not the scenario you described.
This is not what I saw. I don't know what happened. No! It was me!
Clearly, said Blue Diamond. How dare you fuse with a member of my court?
Forgive me,
You will be broken for this!
Wait! What are you doing? No!
I've seen gems fuse before, but I had no idea that's what it felt like. I always thought... I never realized that fusion... that you disappear like that.
It's never like that. Whenever I've fused, it's always just been me, but bigger. I've never had a third eye before.
I've never had more than one. It was nice.
You're losing sight, you're losing touch. All these little things seem to matter so much that they confuse you. That I might lose you. Take a moment, remind yourself to take a moment and find yourself. Take a moment to ask yourself if this is how we fall apart. But it's not, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You've got nothing, got nothing, got nothing, got nothing to fear. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here.
They want to search the barn! We heard.
We saw.
I'm scared. Let's ambush them!
No one needs to get hurt. Let's be sensible.
What do I do?
Just go out there and tell them this is a place where humans live.
I don't want to go alone.
And Sophie.
Understood. Our
To be.
strike one! Huh? Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
I don't know. I don't get off planet much.
What's going on? What are they doing?
Flirting. Uh-oh.
Look at the ball.
I'm trying, but all I want to look at is you.
Don't worry. You can look at me when you're running for home.
I'm here. You know me. You know them too. I don't understand.
We won't stand out if we play the roles we were made for.
Ruby, Sapphire.
Okay, everybody, hear her out.
Today, I'm a Sapphire traveling with my Ruby guard. Never asked any Sapphire to go to Earth.
No, she's freezing up.
My future vision foresaw you, my diamond, desiring more humans for the zoo. So I acted accordingly.
It's true. The window for preserving Earth specimens is closing.
She lied to us! She lied about everything! She held our hands, looked us right in the eyes, and told us to never question who we are as Garnet. We never questioned ourselves, or her! We couldn't have known! No, you couldn't have known! You never know what's going on! That's what I'm for! Sapphire! But I never looked into her! I trusted her! I let her make fools of us all! Sapphire, away! Guys! What?
Please, we could just stay calm and talk about this, right? Let's just talk.
Talk about what? How our relationship is based on a lie? What else is there to say?
Coming back in your future vision, Sapphire?
Oh, maybe. But she's so wonderful and spontaneous. I have no idea what she could... Why would she be a cowboy? Ruby! Ruby! I'm so sorry. I should have never said those awful things to you. That we didn't matter anymore. I shouldn't have pushed you away like that. I was wrong.
Do it. No, you were right. Someone else told us we were the answer. But I don't believe that anymore. At least, not till I hear it from you. Sapphire, will you marry me?
What? Marry you?
Yeah, this way we can be together even when we're apart. This time, being Garnet will be our decision. What do you say?
Of course.
Yeehaw!
I've been waiting to kiss your cute face.
Wanna drink the cow? You gotta put a ring on it.
But Sweetums, who says that?
Let's take a look at printing styles for your invitations.
Would it be cool if we got flames on it?
Oh, and some dolphins.
Yeah, dolphins and flames!
I think I've got exactly what you're looking for on page 135.
How long did it take you to put this together?
My entire life. lions big and small, living gourds, onion. We are gathered here today to celebrate Ruby and Sapphire, two of my favorite people, who combine into one of my other favorite people. You all probably know her as Garnet. She is their love, given form. Now it's your turn to talk about that.
I know this is all kind of silly. I mean, we've been together for 5,750 years.
And 8 months.
I used to feel like I wasn't much good, just one of me on my own. But when we're together, it feels like it's okay to just be me. So I want to be me with you. And not even the diamonds will come between us. And if they try, we'll beat them up.
Ruby, my future used to look like one single, obvious stream, unbending till the end of time. In an instant, you pulled me from that destiny and opened my eye to an explosion of infinite possible futures, streaking across space and time, altered and obliterated by the smallest force of will. What I mean is, you changed my life, and then I changed your life, and now we change our lives.
Bismuth, the rings.
Hey, Bismuth, that's your cue.
Ruby, do you take this gem to have and to hold on this and every other planet in the universe?
I do!
And Sapphire, do you?
Yes,
You didn't let me finish.
I'm just very excited.
Then by the power vested in me by the state of Delmarva, I now pronounce you Garnet!
This is completely unacceptable. Unfuse or I'll make you!
You'll have to go through me.
Huh? What happens next?
In just a moment, the scaffolding will start falling all around you.
What? Wow, you're amazing!
Next, the paradox...
Ruby! I'm sorry! I told you you wouldn't last the day! Well, I'm glad fate allowed me to meet you.
No!
Alright, so that was a brief primer in what their relationship was like. There were a lot more scenes with them separate that were not included in that montage. Keep in mind that this was a relationship that developed over 5 seasons, which were spread out over approximately 8 years because of the sporadic airing schedule of the show. So it was very important to the community that it be shown in a realistic manner. And really, it was kind of done that way. So use that as the basis for helping you to come up with your answer for question number 3. Now I have question number 4. It has been written about some of the shows with LGBTQIA plus themes that their conflict resolution practices demonstrated in them are considered very queer because they don't tend to rely on violence or having a winner than in straighter shows. For example, Steven Universe does a lot of stories with non-violent conflict resolution through empathy and communication, while She-Ra and the Princesses of Power's final climax had the entire universe saved by an admission of love from Catra to Adora. Argue for or against similar conflict resolution techniques becoming a standard of children's television. How does this approach contrast with other popular shows currently on the air or in the past? Would this approach create more or less controversial episodes than could be banned? Okay, so what we're dealing with here is, if you remember, if you grew up with shows like even into the 90s, it's going to be hard because some of you probably don't even remember shows in the 90s. I grew up in the 80s. There was a lot of stuff that involved violent conflict in media that was aimed toward males, okay, toward boys. Things like He-Man, Master of the Universe was swords and sorcery fantasy, but it was very masculine in nature. You had military fiction like G.I. Joe, militaristic sci-fi like Transformers. I mean, at one point, Rambo had a kids show. Okay, this gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. Okay. Even in the 90s, there was a lot more emphasis on action-oriented stuff like Batman or Spider-Man. Fun fact about Spider-Man, the standards and practices of the day did not allow Spider-Man to land any punches if he got into a fight. He could throw them, but he could not land any. Okay? Kind of weird handcuffing of your hero if you want him to be an action star. Alright, so that's neither here nor there. Anyway, what we're talking about is how some of the shows that are being protested because of these LGBTQIA plus themes are also the ones that are showing nonviolent conflict resolution, which is something that's supposed to be being aimed for to try to reduce things like bullying and societal violence and things like that. Okay? Why is that? It makes for some interesting dichotomy here, okay? On the one hand, we want people to be nonviolent, but on the other hand, we're protesting the stuff that's teaching people how to be nonviolent because of other things that are not related to nonviolence. Or is it related to nonviolence? Who knows? This concept is presented in question is examined in the extra article, okay? I believe it's actually, if I remember right, they mentioned something about the queering of children's TV, and this is one issue that they mention is nonviolent conflict resolution. To a certain extent, it's also in the articles from Impact Nottingham. Okay? Now, I do want to show some examples of these nonviolent forms of conflict resolution. Okay? And that's actually from the two shows I mentioned in the question, Steven Universe and She-Ra. Okay? So first clip I'm going to show you is from the second to last episode of Steven Universe Future, which is actually the second to last episode of the series entirely. Okay? And this is a episode titled I Am My Monster, where Steven is actually suffering from some serious mental damage from all the adventures he's had in the 5 seasons of his show and his movie. And he feels like he's got the weight of his world on himself. He has to be perfect. He has to be the savior of the universe. He has to be right all the time. But the problem is that that's led him to some serious self-loathing. That's led to him to some PTSD. It's also led him to some questionable decisions, like at one point he tries to propose to his girlfriend, kind of out of the blue, because he wants to stay fused with her forever, as opposed to living as two separate people. He has a falling out with his dad over why they are the way they are, why he's never known his grandparents, and eventually it goes to the point where Steven grows into this monster that you see here on the slide. Well, what I'm going to show you is how they get him to stop being the monster. Okay, how they get him back into being himself. And this involves just about every major gem character that was introduced in the show. So you will see, obviously we have the 3 central ones, Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl. Okay, you have the other Earth-based crystal gems, Peridot, Lapis Lazuli, Bismuth. You have the other 3 diamonds, yellow diamond, blue diamond, white diamond. And you also have the gem that was introduced in the movie, Spinel. In addition, you have 3 other beings who are involved in this attempt to bring him under control. Actually, 4. One is Steven's lion, who is basically like a companion animal. Steven's father, Connie, who's Steven's girlfriend, the one that he tried to propose to, and then you'll see a giant hand come out of the ocean. That is a gem weapon called the Cluster, which Steven was able to tame, and is coming up to help them at this point. Okay, but you will see what they do. This is basically the anti-kaiju movie. Okay, so let's take a look. Alright, so here's the scene, and just to set this for you, the other thing I wanted to point out is that this scene is preceded by Garnet rallying the troops by saying, "Let's show Steven some love."
Steven! I fell apart, you were there for me. I want to be there for you now. I'm here, Stephen. I'm here.
Is this working? You hear us? Steven!
I'm here, Snowball! Whatever you need, I'll make it happen. You hear me?
Steven! You never gave up on me for some reason I don't understand! I'll do the same for you!
I know you feel bad. Believe me, I get it. Sometimes it feels like you're never gonna like yourself, but it's possible, man.
Stephen, I know how awful it feels to keep a part of yourself secret. You shouldn't have to hide anything from me.
Steven, you must have been so afraid to show us this side of yourself. But we're not going anywhere. We're all gonna take care of you the same way you take care of us. You know what? I don't have your powers, but...
I'm... Lion. Lion.
Alright, so very emotional there, but you see there was not a single punch thrown. There was not anything violent about that. It was basically the world's largest group hug. Okay? We have the other example here, She-Ra and the Princess of Power. This is actually the final climax of the overarching storyline of the entire series. Okay? Now, it has this... I will admit I'm not entirely well versed on this series. I don't have a Netflix account. I have not watched it. All I know about it is secondhand, but what I do know about it is that this particular scene is the climax of a relationship that has been basically slow walking ever since the start of the series between Adora and Catra. Okay. They have been childhood friends. They're friends in this evil organization called the Horde. When they start becoming antagonists to each other, they still have that kind of spark of relationship. Eventually, at the end of the series here, this scene winds up being the basic keystone to the resolution of the conflict that's gone on in the entire series, not just for Catradora and Catra, but the entire war that they have been fighting. Okay? So let's take a look at it. Alright, so this is the resolution, basically the resolution of the entire show. Or I should say just the climax. Resolution will come later.
Adora! Please! You have to wake up! You can't give up. You have never given up on anything in your life. Not even on me. So don't you dare start now! It's too late. I failed. No! I've got you. I'm not letting go. Don't you get it? I love you. I always have. So please, just this once. Stay. Stay.
You love me.
You're such an idiot.
I love you too.
All right, now I can't give you the full context of the. I can't give you the full context of the show, but it is my understanding that the script for that particular episode is actually available online. If I can get the link copied, I will actually supply this to you guys at some point during the week. Either if I can do it earlier, it'll probably be in the message boards. Otherwise, it'll probably be in the Collaborate session this week. Alright, so that does it for this week. So a couple things I need you to keep in mind. First off, your annotated bibliographies are due this week. Okay? Just like usual, on Thursday, the link will open up. Friday is the due date. Okay? So make sure that you guys are ready. You have all of your sources together. You've written your bibliographies. You got your research question. They're all based on that. I also want to make sure you guys have gotten started working on your proposal essays. Okay? You have got next week, and then the following week is going to be the revision workshop on those. Okay? So we're getting down there. You need to be getting writing. All right. Also, in addition to that, keep in mind that if you have not completed MindTap yet, you need to get that finished by the end of the semester. Also, keep up with the discussion questions. After this week, there's 2 more weeks worth. Okay. Of discussion questions, and then you'll be done. You'll have until the end of the semester to get responses in for all of those. Just as a reminder, your responses all have to be 3 paragraphs at least, or else they will not count. Okay? So make sure that you have 3 paragraph replies to all of those discussion questions, or else any that have less than 3 paragraphs are not going to count to your grade. Okay? That being said, keep up the good work. We'll have another Collaborate session this week. I will see you then. I'll have another lecture next week. Thanks for watching.